We're looking at performance appraisal and performance management in this module. And it made me reflect on my experience with performance appraisals, and that started out doing research when I was in graduate school. And my mentor had developed this method of evaluating employee performance where you compared one employee to another and kind of gave them like a grade on a 0 to 100 scale. It was called the relative percentile method. And so I compared that method to another way, more of a graphic rating scale method of evaluating performance, and found that people were more accurate in judging performance when they used this relative approach. And we had developed a whole rationale for why that was the case, that when we do these kinds of judgments, we always compare one person to another. So it was really interesting to to do that. Although I knew while I was doing that there's real limitations to the application of that, because in the performance appraisal process, typically people are very sensitive about getting feedback about their performance, especially being compared to others. And so when I started working at a Fortune 50 company, at one point they asked me for recommendations of whether they should do a forced distribution method of performance appraisal. And I had to kind of come up with some reasoning for that. And of course, I thought that was a bad idea. It was kind of became popular in the late 90s. And it was because oftentimes supervisors are very lenient in their ratings of performance, because people are very sensitive about performance feedback, and so supervisors just give people high ratings across the board. But that's a problem, because it really limits how you can manage people's performance. But so the forced distribution is basically saying, okay, only a small number of people can get the highest rating, and a little more than that can get the second highest rating. And at most, people should be in the middle, but there also have to be some people who get the worst ratings in your unit. And in some companies, they even have a process where the bottom 20% are routinely fired, and we just bring in new people. I don't think that's what they were looking at where I was at, but I clearly saw that there was problems with this forced distribution method. Again, how people would receive it, and also the fact that if you are forced to put people in that lowest category, they may not really fall in that level of performance. So that was kind of interesting for me. Later, as I progressed in my career, I got to the point where I was a manager. I supervised other people and had to go through and do performance appraisals for individuals, and really did encounter the sensitivity of the situation and the difficulty of the situation. And part of it is, doing this on an annual basis can be really problematic, because you forget about what people do over the course of the year. And of course, I knew that was an issue. So for me, I had little tricks. I would keep a file on my computer to remind myself. Before the performance appraisal, I'd go back through emails and project notes and files to see what people had done. But if you're not doing this, just doing an annual one can be very difficult. And I had a really interesting experience with one of my employees who I gave a very favorable review on, except in one category. And that really set this employee off against me, really kind of started to try and undermine me, and kind of went behind my back to my boss, and it was kind of an ordeal. I mean, I worked with it. My boss was very understanding about the situation, and I didn't back down uh, despite what I felt were very unreasonable requests by this employee to change. But it was, for me, very much an eye opener in terms of how difficult the performance appraisal process can be. And I think that I hear every once in a while in the management literature we should get rid of performance appraisal. Um, and I understand how people would feel that. I just think we need to get better at performance appraisal, and that we have to be able to have frank conversations with people about their performance. And part of it is that it shouldn't be infrequent. It should be frequent. And we should practice how to give constructive criticism. And if we do that, then coming up with some formalized appraisal on an annual or semi-annual basis really shouldn't be that difficult because we've got a lot to go on with it. Bye now.